Hello, and welcome to today's show, Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, international leadership expert and trusted advisor. Welcome to Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. I'm so delighted that you joined me today. I have a very special show for you. We are going to talk about Anti-Racism 101. Specifically, I'm going to share a very special story about two ordinary human beings who did the extraordinary during a time in the U.S. when relations between whites and African Americans were pretty grim. Now, some of you are probably saying, well, they still are pretty grim. Well, if that's you, I want you to imagine living in the Jim Crow era in the United States, because that's the time period this story is set in. This true story is about two amazing human beings. The main characters are my father, Earnest McEwen Jr., and noted American author William Faulkner. Yes, that William Faulkner, Nobel laureate and Pulitzer Prize-winning author. I'm going to share their life-changing stories through a book that I wrote called Pass It On. It's a visual book, a picture book for adults and children. And I want to share this story with you so that you can share the story with others. Now, you can share the story by using this show, this podcast, and by buying my book and reading it to and with your children, your neighbor's children, your mom, your dad, your sisters, your brothers, and anyone else you care about and love. So as I mentioned, it's a picture book, and as I read the story, I hope you can actually visualize the beautiful, vibrant pictures on each page as I share this amazing story. My book is called Pass It On. Now, before I share this amazing story, I just want to take just a moment to connect the dots between today's topic on Pass It On and legacy living. Now, there are many ways that Pass It On connects to legacy living, which you'll hear more about later in the show. For now, let me say that legacy living is a way of being and a way of living in the world so that we make conscious choices to be the difference, to be the change, to be the transformation we want to see in the world. So what does that look like? I sure hope you'll be able to answer that question after you listen to this show. For starters, it looks like gratitude, love, faithfulness, and you know what? It's not just about saying thank you and doing gratitude or doing love or doing faithfulness, right? It's about being gratitude and being love and being faithful. We make the conscious choice now to be all of those things and then some, not in some distant future, but now, today, every single day. And we make that conscious choice day in and day out, 365, 24/7. Okay? So, listen up. Let me share with you my book, Pass It On. Anti-Racism 101 and probably 201, 401, 501. You get the idea. The book begins this way. Ernie, yes, that's my father. Ernie loved to read. He loved to read big books, little books, long books, and short books. His parents were too poor to buy books, but that didn't stop Ernie. He borrowed them from his teachers, and when he found one in the trash, he'd fish it out and read it. Now, Ernie's family lived in a small, segregated town called Oxford, Mississippi. To provide for their 4 children, his parents had to work from sunup until sundown, most often in the cotton fields. They planted cottonseed in the early spring and picked the crop all through the fall. During the picking season, Ernie's parents worked day after day, filling their long burlap bags with the fluffy white balls of cotton. When the bags were full, they dragged them to the edge of the field where the cotton was weighed and loaded into large wooden wagons. Then the seeds were removed and the cotton was pressed into big bales to be shipped down the Mississippi River. Ernie wished his parents didn't have to work so long and so hard. He was always glad when weekends arrived. Every Saturday morning, the family rode to town in their horse or mule-drawn wagon to buy food and supplies. In town, Ernie sometimes saw and heard things he didn't understand, and he would get a funny feeling inside. "Mama, why can't I use that drinking fountain? The one we have to use says colored, but the water sure looks the same to me. Papa, why do we always have to go in the back door of the grocery store, and why does Mr. Henderson always call you boy? That's not your name, and you're sure not a boy." Ernie's dad would shake his head and say, "Hush, son. That's just the way things is." As usual, on the long ride home, Ernie's nose was buried in a book. He was reading one of his favorites, a book about buildings and how they were put together. "Someday, I'll build my very own house," he told his mother. "You and Papa can come live with me. We'll even have running water." His mother just looked at him with tired, loving eyes and said, "Oh, Junior, you are such a dreamer." You'll see, Mama. Someday I'll even go to college. You'll see." But how? Even as a young boy, Ernie knew that very few blacks were able to go to school, let alone college. He also knew that going to college would cost a lot of money. Every day after school, he went from house to house, selling packets of seeds, using all the money he earned to buy books. His friends would follow along, teasing him for working so hard. But that never stopped Ernie. As he grew older, Ernie was determined to hold on to his dreams, even though his friends thought reading was a waste of time. Ernie was the first person in his family to go to high school. While he was there, he met Millie, a bright girl with a loving smile who didn't make fun of his ideas. They spent hours talking and laughing and sharing their dreams. As time passed, they fell deeply in love and decided to marry. When the young couple had their first child, a precious little girl, they named her Doris Ann. Before long, they were blessed with two more beautiful little girls, Annie Ruth and Gloria Jean. Even though Ernie now had a family to support, he still held on to his dream of going to college. One Saturday morning, he was in town sharing news with friends when one of his buddies called out, "Hey, Ernie, did you hear? They're looking for someone to take care of those big, fancy buildings at the university." "Ole Miss? Oh, I'd give anything to have a job there." Ernie knew that work at the university was steady and the pay was better than most places. It was just the kind of job he needed to move closer to his dreams. Ernie woke up bright and early on Monday morning. He put on his best shirt and pants, laced up his black leather shoes, then walked through town to Ole Miss. A janitor's position was open, and he was hired right on the spot. Now, Ernie took great pride in his work. and believed that whatever the task, he should always do his very best. He polished the floors until they glowed. He scrubbed the toilets until they were spotless, and washed the windows until they sparkled. While working at Ole Miss, Ernie's love for learning grew stronger than ever. He went to work early and stayed late to read newspapers, books, old magazines, anything he could find. Several of the teachers noticed Ernie reading day after day. One morning, a kind gentleman named Dr. Guess offered to let the young man use his office before and after work. Ernie was grateful to have a quiet place to read. Early one morning, while he was reading, Ernie heard the office door open. He looked up, expecting to see Dr. Guess. Instead, a total stranger walked in. The man wore a hat, a bow tie, and a tan-colored suit. His brown shoes were polished to a shine. "You must be Earnest McEwen," he said. Ernie quickly stood up and put down his book, surprised that this man knew him by name. "Dr. Guess has told me about you. He says that you work hard, read anything you can get your hands on, and have a burning desire to go to college." Now, Ernie had no idea why Dr. Guess had told this stranger so much about him, but he nodded in agreement. "I love my job here at Ole Miss, sir, but I'd give anything to attend college myself." "Well, I admire your drive and determination," the man said. "My name is Dr. Love." Dr. Love could see how deeply Ernie wanted to go to college. "Mr. McEwen," he said, "I think I know someone who might help you with your dream." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper with a name written on it. "When you go to see this gentleman, tell him I sent you." With that, Dr. Love tipped his hat and left the room. Ernie was shocked when he read the name. William Faulkner. Now, he'd heard many stories about the reclusive writer who lived at Roanoke, a large old home at the edge of town. But, like most people in Oxford, Ernie had never met the world-famous author. Amazed and puzzled, he carefully tucked the paper into his pocket, wondering why this man would even care about his dream. The next day, Ernie put on his Sunday best clothes and black leather shoes. As he walked up the long stone pathway to Roanoke, he didn't know what to expect. When he reached the front door, Ernie took a deep breath and knocked, then waited nervously. A dark-skinned woman in a yellow dress and white apron opened the door, greeting him with a friendly smile. "You must be Earnest McEwen. Mr. Faulkner has been expecting you. Please, wait here for just a moment." As Mr. Faulkner walked toward him, Ernie's heart was pounding. But to his surprise, he felt immediately at ease with the celebrated writer. They talked for hours that afternoon in the shade of the giant oak trees surrounding the house. Mr. Faulkner listened intently as Ernie spoke about his lifelong dream of going to college. "Ever since I was a boy, I've loved to read books. From these books, I've learned that things can be very different from the way they are here in Oxford. My wife and I have struggled all our lives, but we've never forgotten our dreams. We want our girls to have a better life than we've had." Mr. Faulkner could feel Ernie's passion for learning and saw the determination in his eyes. "Mr. McEwen," he asked, "do you have a college in mind?" "Oh, yes, sir," Ernie said. "Alcorn. It's a long way from here, over 200 miles. But I've heard it's a wonderful school that provides a solid education for blacks." "Excellent choice, Mr. McEwen. If I may, I'd like to help you with your dream." Ernie couldn't believe his ears. At first, he was overjoyed. But after a long silence, he slowly shook his head. "I want to go to college more than anything in the world, but I can't accept your generous offer. I just don't see how I'd ever be able to pay you back." With a twinkle in his eye, Mr. Faulkner smiled. "I don't expect you to pay me back. I'm just glad I can help you and your family." "But, sir, how can I ever thank you?" The famous author reached out to shake Ernie's hand. "Mr. McEwen, the only thing I would ask is that when someone else needs a kindness, you pass it on." Before leaving Roanoke, Ernie stopped at the edge of the woods and knelt on the cool grass beside an old magnolia tree. With tears flowing down his cheeks, he said a prayer of gratitude for his family, Dr. Guess, Dr. Love, and William Faulkner. With each step on the long walk home, Mr. Faulkner's words echoed in Ernie's mind. "Pass it on. Pass it on. Pass it on." Ernie couldn't wait to tell his family the good news. When he saw Millie standing on the front porch, he ran to her as fast as he could. "Mr. Faulkner is helping me go to Alcorn." Millie threw her arms around him and they danced with joy. But her mind was racing with questions. How will we live apart, so far apart, for so long? Will I be able to raise our daughters all by myself? Even with her worries, Millie laughed as she watched her husband twirling around the porch with their youngest daughter, Gloria Jean. Ernie's face was glowing. "There's more, Millie," he said with a grin. "We're all going to Alcorn, you, me, and our girls." Now it was Millie who couldn't believe her ears. Ernie squeezed her hand and gathered his family around. "We are so blessed. We have each other, we have our faith, and now our dream is finally coming true." That fall, Ernie enrolled at Alcorn A&M College. Now, even after graduating, he and Millie still had to work very, very hard, but they did make a better life for their family. By believing in himself and passionately following his dreams, Ernie created a lifelong ripple effect of learning and generosity, not only in his own family, but in the lives of countless others. And he never forgot his pledge to pass it on. Pass it on. Pass it on. Right now, in our culture and our society, and I'm going to say the world, there's so much misunderstanding, lack of knowledge, hatred, and animosity. And at the same time, more and more and more people are courageous and curious, more and more and more people are taking responsibility to go after their own learning. They're equipping themselves to cut through the hundreds, I'm going to say the thousands of years of bigotry, hatred, prejudice, horrific and systemic abuse, systemic oppression, and systemic violence to Black, brown, and indigenous peoples all over the planet. Pass It On is a universal story. It's a universal book. And the timing could not be better. This timing is absolutely right for this particular time in our world history, in our global history. Why? Because this story highlights so many different aspects of what we are yearning for. Love, kindness, compassion, generosity. And I'm not talking about financial generosity. What I'm talking about here is generosity of spirit. This book is about all of those things and then some. Most importantly, my dad's story is about the power of the human spirit. My book, Pass It On, says we are meant to be here, not merely for ourselves, but to lift up one another and to link elbows and walk together. It's about seeing into the heart of one another and seeing past superficial differences. In this case, the differences of race and class and age and so much more. It's about really seeing into the wonder, the mysterious beauty, the marvelous human heart, and believing in our common and our shared humanity and divinity. Now, another key lesson in Pass It On is all about the power, and I'm going to say the power and the blessing of dreaming. Not just dreaming small, but dreaming big. This is one of the most important parts of the story. You see, not only is Ernie, the small boy in the book, a dreamer, but so is Mr. Faulkner, right? Which is why he connects with my father. The importance of dreaming is really significant in this book. Also, the power of your own determination, your own hard work. It's about the power of your own faith in yourself and the power of having something that just burns in you so passionately that you just have to go for it. Right? And that's what dreaming, having a vision is all about. Now, another key element of this book is the importance of African American authors writing our own stories through our own voices, right? Not just having stories come through someone else's voice. We've had enough of that already, right? We add to the community's health and wealth when we value African American and other peoples of color, when we value indigenous peoples who are underrepresented in the realm of books and in writing in general. Now that's a whole nother show, right? Okay. Our topic today is anti-racism. 101, 201, 401, 501, wherever you happen to be on your journey. And I just shared a resource that's near and dear to my heart, and that's my book, Pass It On. Now, this book is a valuable tool to get the conversation started. I want you to use it. And if you want to make your life count, if you want to be the change, to be the transformation you seek, remember this. How you live is how you do everything, right? How you live is how you lead. How you live is how you parent. How you live is how you befriend one another. Now, I want you to be sure to do one thing for me and one thing for yourself, and that's be sure to listen to this show again and again and again, and be sure to tell somebody. Now, you can find me right here on iTunes, Alexa, SoundCloud, Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Talk Network Radio, and so many other places. If you happen to miss any part of this week's show or last week's, you can simply download the recording and listen to it at your convenience. You can even listen on the go. Check us out. All of these different places: iTunes, Alexa, SoundCloud, Spreaker.com, Talk Network Radio. You can also find me and learn more about my work and Legacy Living Make Your Life Count by visiting my website. That's the Gloria Burgess website. Or you can visit me on LinkedIn or on Facebook. I want to hear from you and I want to connect with you. Before I close today, I want to thank each of you for tuning in to today's show, for allowing me to share a bit about my journey with what legacy living is all about. Not just living and learning, but living and learning and serving, so that you make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. It's about being on purpose every single day, 365, 24/7. Legacy living is a powerful way to make your life count. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me for today's show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess, and this is Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. Please join me again next time right here, Talk Network Radio, for another show of Legacy Living, Make Your Life Count. Don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Have a fantastic day, and remember, make the days in your life count. God bless you. That's our show today. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Burgess. I hope you'll join me again next time. Until then, don't just count the days in your life. Make the days in your life count. That's what legacy living is all about. Here's to you. Have a fantastic day, and be sure to make it a yes kind of day. Remember to celebrate the music of your life. Make the days in your life count.